This is 2002, as you can see on the copyright sign. We thought, rather naively, we thought we'd have a look and see what sort of merchandising and things like that might appeal to distributors, and we were very naive. We really didn't understand this side of the business at all. So we sort of, well, we actually made these, actually. I've got a picture of my daughter holding a sack of these balloons in 2002 when we pitched them. And actually, when we pitched it, we took along a gas canister and we handed out big balloons to everybody that came to the presentation, which was good because they all had a big balloon, which was really nice. But not so good in that, like, from everybody from like row 2 onwards couldn't see what I was presenting because there was everybody's balloons were in the way. So. And here we had a little flyer that we made as well, which again just gave some details of the series. In those days we had to do it in French as well, which was quite interesting. Notice as well that the design has changed a little bit in those days. We had these sort of rather lenticular shaped shadows, which we don't use anymore. They're much more sort of oval shape, the shadows. And the colours actually have changed a little bit on the characters once we started working on the series. And even the logo has changed a little bit. Mark, when we did this pitch, he already started designing a font. And it was the best thing that we ever did, have our own sort of font, because really from day one, when we started making the series, if anybody wanted to do anything with paper, we could give them the font and it provided sort of continuity of the series. And then on the back of that flyer, we had a few of the stories that we saw earlier. And the other thing, and most importantly for those days, was was we made this, and that was a 3D maquette. Because when we pitched Pepper, there were no 2D series really on television at that time. It was all Bob the Builder, and that sort of and Toy Town and Noddy and all that sort of stuff. And the idea was all of the distributors and all the toy makers, they believed that to have a hit TV show, you just have to have things on the screen that then they can take and put on the store, and then children will go and buy that. And that was the way the model worked. So you sold your television series to a broadcaster for a small amount of money, and then you sold the toy rights to a toy company for a bit more money. And the way that the series was made was it was monetarized, if you like, by selling toys. So we thought, well, okay, the first criticism we're going to get at Pepper is 2D. How can you sell toys? So we actually went and made this maquette. We had a friend of ours, Michael Schlingman, lovely guy, who some of you probably know, make this maquette. And I actually made it up and I handed it around the audience when we were presenting it, and that made an absolutely massive difference. We made up these things. We thought Wellington boots were obvious, and in fact, actually, 6 years after we started making Peppa Pig, there was always merchandising somewhere here. Still, nobody was making Wellington boots, and that was always a big sign to me.
Do you want to share the cake mix?
Oh, I can share the cake mix. Martin on the way in could resist this. We resisted this. I tell you, for years and years and years. When we actually got this series away, when we did manage to get it funded, we had a right to approve anything that was sold, had Pepper on it. We sold half the rights. And that would have been absolutely not on our list of things to make. We resisted this sort of stuff for the best part of 10 years, just saying, no, never, ever, over our dead body. And you know what? I think it was after about 10 years or 11 years, they just went and made it anyway. And they just ignored us. And the first thing we found we went in shops, and all of a sudden we spotted something in a shop somewhere. And I think ever since that day we realised, well, okay, we might have the right to approve everything in the shops, but when you get a brand as big as Pepper has become, it's just me, Mark, and Nev trying to sort of keep tabs on all of this sort of stuff. It got a bit stupid, really. So there's been actually quite a big change in the relationship between us now and this sort of stuff. And it's all managed completely independently from us, because otherwise I think we'd be just losing sleep at night, because I'm still not happy about that, to be honest. But I recognise that the world we live in is that this sort of stuff is on the shelves. So, spawn of the devil.
I just brought it in because when I was buying a sandwich, it was the next thing along on the next aisle.
You can always just cut it and then tip the mixture out and keep the box.
Well, I'm going to.
You could do. Anyway, it's there. I mean, it exists. We were very naive. You know, we just thought this would be the nice sort of stuff. We just do the nice stuff. We wouldn't do any of the sort of things. You know, actually, a lot of people rely on to make the money. So we mocked up the DVD. And the mug, as if you do. Storybooks as well. We mocked this storybook up as well, just with the trailer on it, just so that people could see how we might see how my work as a storybook, if you like. And this was all part of our idea to try and make it real in distributors' minds, so that the funders, the people, the money people, say, "Oh, this is a real project. This is going to happen. I need to be involved with this." So it's all part of the sort of sales process, if you like. You know, we had a VHS that we made up as well, just with the trailer on. I think we put that stuff on there. And this was quite a big thing. I think about 3 weeks before we went and pitched it, we were actually struggling with some of the ideas when it got to sort of 52 episodes. Coming up past episode 40, we were starting to struggle with ideas, and we sat down and we thought, well, what about Pepper's friends? Who are they? And what, are they more pigs? Do they snort, or are there other animals? And so Mark and Ev went away, and they came up with this sort of thing. It doesn't really do much. There is a rose.
Oh, sorry.
Is it? Oh, it isn't. Oh yeah, there is a little sound. so actually, that's my bark on that. Oh no, well that was my little meh on there, but Danny Dog, I don't know where that came from, but I do the bark with Danny Dog these days. But when we were pitching this, this was the big sort of moment where everything sort of changed in the room. Up until this point, I think people could see that it could be a real project, but one of the big things about children's animation is it has to be scalable. That is that broadcasters and the distributors need to know that there's a world that can grow and can sustain several series, ideally 260 episodes, big series, if you like. That might have a major licensing program behind it. And as soon as I showed this with Pepper's friends, there was a tangible change in the room, and you could see people starting to get very enthusiastic about the whole project. And in fact, afterwards, something that it was a recurring theme when I was talking to people. They said, "Well, we really love, the idea that could be, who's this Susie Sheep character?" And she turned out obviously to be Pepper's friends, but best friends. Okay, so that's Pepper, and I thought, how long do you want me to talk for?
As long as you want. We can have a break in a bit if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what time does it end? This?
Well, whatever you want.
I mean, we can talk about other stuff. All right. We can talk about stuff. I'll quickly whiz through, because after we finished the first series of Peppa Pig, it was by no means certain that it was going to be successful. It got very, very good ratings on Channel 5. Nick Jr., the other partner that we chose to show on satellite television, absolutely loved it. They really loved it. But the people that put up all the money were the distributor, and they were putting up half the money. So they were putting up, the best part in those days, about £800,000. I think it was actually £742,000. And in those days, for the company that we were working with, a company called Contender Entertainment, £742,000 was a lot of money. So they needed to break after the first series, just let it sit there and just see how it was doing before they even thought about funding another series. So we thought, well, what are we going to do? So we thought, well, we'll pitch something else. So that is exactly how we came up with. We came up with Ben and Holly's Little Kingdom. I'm doing this on Bluetooth. Do you think Bluetooth is just rubbish, isn't it? It just doesn't work. Even when I got my phone in my pocket and I got my headphones on, it goes. So we came up with Ben and Holly in that interim period. We had a break of about, I think it's about 9 months, where the distributor was just deciding whether they were going to actually pay for another series of Pepper. We were the broadcasters, they wanted it, we wanted to do it, but as I say, without money to make it, you're a bit sort of in the water. So we had this gap. So we pitched this other series, we had this other idea, Ben and Holly. Oh. About, and we wanted to make this series. One of the things that bothered us about Peppa Pig was that we pitched it for 2 to 3-year-old preschool girls. And one of the things that really bothered me particularly was that it was for girls. I mean, it wasn't for girls and boys. And in fact, actually, Peppa Pig is as much for boys as it is for girls. And we always, secretly, made it as much for boys and girls. We wanted it to be gender neutral, but the people we were pitching to just didn't want to know that. They didn't want to hear that message. They just wanted to know, is it for girls or boys? Because when Granny is walking down the aisle in Tesco, she needs to go, do I look in the pink aisle or do I need to look in the blue aisle? And it's as vacuous as that, how these big decisions in funding of television series are made. It sort of really annoyed us. So we thought, right, I know what we'll do. We'll make a series which has a boy, and this is truly going to be a series for boys and for girls. And so we came up with Ben and Holly, and half of the episodes in Ben and Holly are about Ben, who's an elf, and half the series in Ben and Holly are about Holly, who's a fairy princess. And again, we made a trailer in the same way we did for Pepper. This one's a bit more sophisticated now.
This is the Little Kingdom, a tiny land of elves and fairies.
It follows the same sort of format.
Very, very, very small. This is Holly. Hello. And this is Holly's best friend, Ben. Hello. Holly is a tiny fairy princess. She has fairy wings. Ben is an elf. Elves don't have wings. I'm an elf. Holly has a magic wand.
Ben, I'm going to turn you into a frog. Apricazee, apricazug, Ben, you are a little frog. Oh, bother. You're not a frog, you're a little dog.
Holly is still learning how to do magic properly.
Yeah.
Her spells don't always work out quite right.
Sorry, Ben.
Ben doesn't do magic.
I'm an elf.
Elves don't have wings and they don't do magic, but there are loads of other things they're very good at. Elves can run really fast.
I can run really fast.
And elves are very good at jumping.
Look at me. I'm jumping really high.
Elves are absolutely brilliant at climbing.
I love climbing up things.
But the thing elves are most good at is making things, especially toys.
This is for you, Holly.
Thank you, Ben.
Princess Holly lives with her family in a little castle which stands right in the centre of the little kingdom. Holly's daddy and mummy are King and Queen Thistle. They have a lot of very important work to do, ruling the little kingdom and doing this and that. Ben doesn't live in a castle. Ben lives with his mummy and daddy in the great elf tree, which is like a sort of apartment block. In fact, all the elves live in the elf tree. Holly and Ben have lots of friends. Their most special friend is Gaston the ladybird.
Hello, Gaston.
Hello, Gaston. Can't catch me.
Yeah, he barks these
Oh,
days.
it's me, Holly. Giddy up, giddy up. Giddy up, giddy up.
The little kingdom may be very, very tiny, but it's a great place to live and have all sorts of fun and magical adventures.
Our editor does the bark of Gaston, because when we started to make the series, we pitched it in the same way we pitched Pepper, and you'll see here we've got things like we made a little map, and we did some character designs. And after we got it away, we were sitting in the edit suite one day, and the editor just said, "Well, why don't we try a dog bar called Gaston?" And that's how it happened. So, like a lot of things in our series, that just happen, just on the spur of the moment when we're doing things. We also did a lot of character work early on, and actually it's quite interesting now because the design of King Thistle has just completely changed. And Nanny was an interesting one. A lot of the broadcasters want us to just get rid of Nanny. They couldn't see Nanny at all. They thought, well, this is sort of harking back to some old sort of time in England, But actually, Nanny is our sort of favourite character, so we fought long and hard to keep her in. We also like the idea of Ben. Now, this is a typical animators thing. Nev and Mark really wanted to show how Ben might ride on the top of Gaston, so this sequence just to illustrate the point. The other thing we had in there, we had this wand that we thought in the early days would have much more of a character. In the end, actually, the wand doesn't really, it does sort of smile and does occasionally make a noise, but really doesn't do a great deal. And again, we have episodes, we did another 52 ideas. Again, the same idea of Pepper, really, just to make it sort of as a real project. We mocked up books. Again, this is the same image. So you can see where the camera's on, basically. And we made up 3D maquettes in the same way. And fortunately, it turned out, now this was quite different because this was a 10-minute series and it turned into 11-minute episodes. And it just happens, obviously, that 11 minutes, you double that up to 22 minutes. That's pretty close to a US half hour. So in fact, Ben and Holly managed to get it funded much more easily than Pepper. I think partially because now, after the first series of Pepper was starting to get a little bit better known and people started to sort of trust us, God knows why. And we also made up these, I don't know, this will play actually, but oh yeah, well you can see it turning around. This is a QuickTime, oh yeah, hang on. This is a QuickTime VR thing, so we made them up for just for reference purposes. We had an enormous amount of trouble with Pepper when people started making toys and things like that. With the quality control, we found that a lot of the earlier sort of models just didn't look like the characters at all. So we made these up. So that was that, really. So that was our original pitch, if you like, for both projects, and did us pretty well. I mean, here I am 16 years later, 266 episodes or something like that. Well, I think we haven't delivered 260 episodes, we're just making 230 at the moment. And I say making 230, we had 248 in Leica at the moment, so that is just the first stage before they start animating it. And we'll deliver the full 60th episode in June, something around there. And thereafter another 100 episodes from us. So now we have exactly, prior to 2000, we had no work. Now they want us to do another 100 episodes over the next 5 years. I think, what do I want to spend another 5 years of my life doing Pepper? Well, Mark certainly wants to write, and Nev certainly wants to come in and be involved with the animation. I certainly don't want to just sort of walk away. So we have some great people. We have people like Hannah Lee Miller, who is working on the production front. And we have Joris van Hulsen, who works with us on the animation front, and Sarah Roper, who a lot of people know these names, who's working with us on the design front. And Sarah and Joris is actually going to be directing some of the new episodes. And Hannah, I hope, is going to persuade her to produce some of the new episodes. So we're starting to think about how we can make this a more long-term thing without us being quite so hands-on with every frame. Because ultimately, when this started, it really is the way it is because we were just all over everything, and we treated every single episode like a short film. And it's a great thing, but when you've got another 100 episodes to make, after making 260 episodes, you just think, right, do I really want to be doing that with my life? So we're still keeping our options open at the moment, and who knows what will happen in 5 years' time. I'll probably still be making another 100 episodes in 5 years' time. But of course, it is a massive licensing hit now. We know a lot about the licensing industry, which we didn't know before. It's a bit of a weird old place we find ourselves because there's me, Mark, and Nev still, I suppose, at the centre of this, making episodes. And yet, around the world, there are theme parks and 180 countries that show Pepper. There's $1 billion a year coming in licensed goods through the shops and things like this. So me and Mark and Nev, we sort of sit there sometimes, sort of looking at people that are telling us all this stuff. Really? Okay. But then we go back to our little studio because we're 16 of us in our studio, and it's worked really well because we kept small and we've kept really to the same ideals that we had when we started out. 15 or 16 very, very hugely talented animators we have in London here. We have some of the most talented animators in the world just working in London, and for us as well. So we feel enormously privileged that people, we can still get people in to work with us. And we're trying to keep it sort of a small scale like that, but driving this sort of mad mega machine, if you like. Okay, so do we want to have a break?
Yeah, do you want to show some episodes in the second half and just sort of play it by ear, really?
Yeah. I mean, things, if you want me to talk about financing, the technical side of it, the production side of it, the script writing side of it, the design side of it, anything you particularly want to know about, we'll perhaps open up to you guys. Okay.
Okay, well, can we have a massive round of applause for Phil Davies? Thank you so much. That was absolutely fantastic. Really fascinating. The fact that you also showed us the run up to Pepper, how it all began, because that tends to be the mystery bit that no one ever talks about. So.
Yeah, exactly. No, but people don't talk about the money as well, which I find a bit weird. So if you want to know how much anything costs, apart from people's wages, I'm quite happy to talk to you about that.
Brilliant. Well, should we have a short break now? Back in about 10 minutes. Thank you very much, and see you in 10 minutes.